When the trapper was young, he was told a story of a mythical arrow shot from a mythical bow. For that arrow to reach its target, it had to cross half the distance. Then it had to halve that distance again, then again, and so on. Of course, that particular arrow never reaches its target because it never crosses all those infinite halves. How could it? That still made some sense to him. Turns out this arrow is not that arrow. A part of him was surprised. Jacob had been watching through a hole in the window broken by a shovelhead. He saw a shirtless man holding in one hand a knife, and in the other a rope strung over a rafter and noosed around his friend's neck. The jagged hole in the glass and the angle through which he gazed only allowed him a target of that wild-looking man's head. So half-drunk and adrenaline-jacked in that northern morning, that's what Jacob sighted for, pulled a bowstring for. Then a man who was no archer loosed an arrow. He watched it graze the head of a man you'd rather not graze. The broad head so pretty and dazzling in its flight as it sliced through that spectrum of morning light, as if the blades were reflecting the shining state of loving kindness that for the last few moments had entranced the trapper enough for him to lower Dave down from the tips of his toes to flat-footed. The blade slit the trapper's ear, then cut across his temple and sliced his eyelid. Its sting came before the blood, and the blood came quick. His head reeled backwards, and the blade must have nicked a vessel, because there sprayed a thin arc of blood. The arrow thudded hard into the cabin wall, and the trapper, wounded, looked from Dave to the window, a man outside the glass frantically reloading a bow. His son's bow. This hand plays itself out. His knife already gripped prompted his next action. An instinctual action, a defense lawyer might say. Entirely justified given the circumstance. A trial lawyer might implore to the court, "Could you imagine a clearer case of self-defense, Your Honor?" He was even bleeding from an arrow while watching another being loaded. The trapper had lowered Dave from his dancer's pose, but hadn't yet let go of the rope. He gave his knife the smallest vertical toss, the quickest one-handed way to swap his grip from handle to blade, as that's how you throw one. He caught the blade with a light grip and pinched the metal with the cutting edge facing outwards between his fingers. His remaining nails, those he hadn't lost digging in the clay the night of his son's burial, were blackened underneath with grave soil. He was losing vision in his right eye, and that blood was coloring his world a rageful red as he watched a man who just shot him reloading his dead son's bow. That earlier tide of loving kindness was out, and the flood of mean intentions was in. The trapper, so recently overwhelmed by total compassion, now had the instinctual switch of self-defense flicked in his head. Thoughts gone from light to dark. He squared his body for the throw. Aim small, miss small. That maxim in his head. He focused his one clear eye at the semicircular hole in the window featuring a man's face. That face a small target, and built with bone to withstand blows and deflect projectiles. He knew a head was a poor place to try and stick a knife. Just above the lower rim of broken glass was a softer, fleshier target. The trapper drew his arm back while sighted on an Adam's apple to cleanse this man of his original sin. Jacob had unclipped a second arrow from the side quiver, and with shaky hands managed to get it knocked. He was drawing back an arrow already aimed at its destination. The trapper had his arm cocked and knife high for the throw. He tried to blink his nicked right eyelid and clear his view, but it only partially responded, and the blood flooded the bank of his lower lid and trickled out. He looking like some hell beast weeping blood. The rope in his other hand, he released his grip and started his throw, and Dave lunged at the trapper while yelling out hoarsely, "No!" Dave hurled his body into the trapper, who'd halfway taken a step to put some weight behind his throw.